Hey, what's up guys? Don Juan. So unfortunately I have some bad news. The footage that I had of removing the stock suspension of the ScatPack is no longer available to me. I don't know what happened. I don't know if I recorded over or if my SD card took a crap, but unfortunately I don't have that. So what we're gonna do today is I gotta make some final adjustments to the suspension. After you install air ride, you still may have to adjust the front and the rear depending on how you feel. So what we'll take a look at right here is if you see how much the rim is tucking into the fender well, basically it's just riding lower than it kind of needs to be. So you can actually raise up the rear, the shock. If you raise the shock, it'll increase the height, and then that'll give you a little bit more coverage. Right now I'm running about 90 psi in the back. I want to try to get that down to like the mid to low 80s. So by raising the shock, we should be able to do that or get somewhat close. On the front is pre-adjusted from airlift, so it can't go any lower. You know, essentially like the way it's set up right now, it's already maxed out on how low it can go. It's already touching like the upper control arm and stuff like that, like it's bottoming out. So I'm gonna leave that alone. I'm happy with the way that it looks, and the ride quality is pretty good. So we'll go over the other issues with that with ride quality and stuff today. So what we're gonna do is get this baby jacked up, and then we'll go ahead and get the tires removed and do our final adjustments, and I'll show you guys what bolts need to be removed for you guys to take the factory suspension out. Alright guys, so here is the rear bag again. We're about to deflate it because it is, you want to make sure you air it out so you can make any adjustments. But so basically the issue that we're having is from this red ring right here to the top is a little off compared to the other side. On these vehicles, what happened was I wasn't 100% sure, and I found out later on these vehicles, any suspension component that's been removed, like the sway bar link right here, or when you remove the rear shock or anything like that, you have to leave the bolts loose, put the car on the ground with all the weight on it, and then tighten them up. Well, I didn't do that, so that's why the rear passenger sides are, all the sides are off on height and measurement based off PSI. So we're gonna do that today. So essentially, when you're removing this for the first time to get the stock suspension out, what you're gonna do is you're going to remove the sway bar link. This will allow it to drop a few extra inches, you know, because if not, the other side is going to be held up because it's connected. This bar, you know, the rear sway bar is connected to the other side. Then you have your shock. So you're going to remove the bolt here at the bottom of the shock, right there, that bolt, and then after you remove that, the bolt in the bottom of the shock, there's two bolts right here for the top of the shock, one here and one here. You're gonna remove those and the shock should drop right out. You may have to push the lower control arm down. Then the spring sits in here, the factory spring sits where this bag is now, and you're gonna remove that and then, you know, install this bag if you're doing that. But it's really not that bad. It's only a few screws and a few bolts, so we'll go ahead and do that right now so you guys can check it out. Since the bag is aired out, it won't be this easy to get these out when you're doing the stock suspension, because the stock suspension is always compressed. So since the bag is aired out, as you can see there, it's moving. So that makes it easier for me to be able to remove this without having to apply pressure or anything like that. Same thing with the M bar, the sway bar bolt. typically what you would have to do is put a jack underneath here and raise it up just enough so it gets enough pressure off of the bolts so you can slide them out. All right, so right here on the end link, there's actually a spacer that they supply you with the air ride, because this is actually flush against this. This gives it enough space so that when you air out, the bag isn't touching the rear link. And there's another set of spacers in the front, but the later model LX chassis, so the newer ones like this one, you don't need it. On some of the older models you do. So anyway, you're gonna get your adjustment wrench, and we're gonna break this ring loose. All right, so now the ring's broken loose. Now we can take out the bolt that's holding it in there. All right, so now that bolt's out, we can start measuring. All right, so when you're measuring, this isn't the greatest way, but it's close enough. So this shock is at 7 3/4. We're gonna move it up to 8 inches because that's where the other side is at. Like I said, I didn't realize that it was that far off until later. I don't know what I was thinking. So now that we got the bolt out on the bottom and the shock loose, you should be able to spin the body down. You may have to apply pressure to the top so the body can actually move and spin. So I'm pushing the brake rotor down so I can spin the bottom of the chassis. So we'll measure it right there, bring the ring down so it touches. So now we can measure the distance again. So we are at right about a little over 8 inches, so like slightly. So we're gonna probably go back about a turn. Okay, we'll see how that is. And this is pretty much, you just got to make sure that you take your time on this and make sure that you get both sides as even as possible. Yep, so let me make sure again. So we are 8 inches. Oh, the ring wasn't all the way down, so let's measure it one more time. Shouldn't be too big of a deal, but you never know. Yep, 8 inches. So like I said, I'm measuring from the top of the ring to the top of the shock where it ends. So you can measure it practically from anywhere, realistically. Just make sure it's a good, reference point. So now this is at 8 inches. What we're gonna do is we're gonna put the bolt back in. Okay. So that's secure. Now that that's secure, we can go ahead and tighten the ring up. Okay. Now that the ring's tightened, one more time for good measure. And we have 8 inches. So we're good. Now, the mistake that I made, that if you guys ever remove factory suspension, is this bolt right here, the end link bolt, and the lower control arm bolt. I tighten them right now, and that's not what you're supposed to do on this type of vehicle, on these chassis. We're gonna snug them all the way up, turn them back so that they're loose, then we're gonna drop the car, so all the weight's on the car, and then we're gonna tighten them. Now, I didn't do that on the other side too, so the other side, right now, I'm going to loosen them up. Is still loose, lower control arm bolt is still loose, and that's the only thing we removed. So we're gonna go ahead and loosen that on the other side and then put the car on the ground. So now we have everything broken loose. we're gonna go ahead and throw the rear tire on, put some air in the bags, and then we're gonna drive it out to the street. And what we're gonna do to help us out is we're gonna fill up the bags like probably to the max, which is like 125 in the rear and like 100 in the front. That should give us more than enough clearance to lay on the ground and be able to tighten up those bolts. Like I said, don't forget that step because your suspension will be off and one side will be higher than the other. One side will sag. Guys, so wanted to show you guys the top of the strut assembly. So when you go to remove the front, like I said when I showed in the last video, there was 2 bolts on the bottom. You want to remove the under the shock bolt, and then you got these 3 on top. So this right here is your dampener adjustment, so you can make it harder or softer. So basically this, you turn it, you know, you can see it says H and S, so hard and soft, so you can actually adjust the dampening, so how stiff your suspension is. I have mine at around, I think they say it's like 36 way. I have mine right around 20 clicks to hard, or yeah, 20. Like I put it all the way soft and then clicked it 20 times towards the harder, and seems to be a lot nicer than stock. You know, not so stiff and everything. So now we're gonna go show you the trunk setup. So this is obviously not done, not even close, but so this is the air lines you can see where they came in from those holes I was telling you guys about. I haven't messed with the new tank yet, so but I wanted to show you guys what everything is. So right back there is the little brain module. So that's what controls the whole system. So all the air lines go into that. The electronic connector comes out of that into the controller that goes to the front. Then you have your 2 air compressors, you know, nothing special. The air tank, nothing special, you know, air just goes in. So basically the way the system works is the air compressor starts to run, pushes air into the tanks through this steel braided line. It goes through a check valve on both sides. I got upgraded check valves, so this doesn't allow the air to get pushed back. Then on the bottom, you have a dump connector, which is right here. So this is the little connector that if the PSI gets too high, it'll blow off right here. And then you have a little like filler. So like if something were to happen to your compressors and they're not running, you can actually fill this from like one of those tire filling stations. You can fill the tank. Then it comes out of the tank, out of this 90 degree. It goes into a water trap system. So this traps the water before it goes into the brain, because that's what you don't want. You don't want water going from through here through the brain. The water gets built up from just the condensation from the hot air being made through the compressors if they run for a long period of time. So this traps the water, and you just there's a drain on the bottom, and basically when I mount this up, I'm gonna actually plug in the hose and run it to the outside of the car. So, and it's gonna be open all the time so that it'll just constantly drain through, which is pretty nice. This is the wiring that I showed you guys on the last one. Nothing special there. It looks like a lot because this wiring, like I mentioned before, is supposed to run to the front of the car if your battery's in the front. Since my battery's in the back, I have a lot of extra, you know, wire left over. These are just my ground right here, plugs into the side, and this is the hot. That doesn't look good. Like I said, this is not even, this weekend is when we're going to put in a new tank. And then we were able to find a signal in the rear fuse box for key on, because you want to find that signal for key on. This is the signal wire, this little pink one, basically so that when you actually turn the key on, the system turns on, and then when you turn the key off, the system turns off, obviously. This wire right here is for the controller that goes up to the front. I have it just going through the middle of the car right now, but that typically you want to run it, you know, like underneath the carpet or whatever, and pop out wherever you want it to be. So that's pretty much how the system works. With the controller, it has the PSI. I'll show you guys here in a minute, but I want to show you guys what it looks like. So if I were to do, let's do the front left, driver front, it's going to be aired out. You can see there. passenger left, and then the other side, so you can see raises the car. Then we'll actually go to ride height with one button, so that's pretty cool. Guys, that's all I got for you today. Hope you guys enjoy that video. Like I said, again, I apologize for not having the footage of removing this stuff, but it's pretty straightforward if you're mechanically inclined. In this one, I showed you guys what bolts to remove and stuff, and on the other one, for the front, you can actually see it's just the 3 bolts on top and there's 2 bolts on the bottom, so it's really not that big a deal. The next video, which won't be posted until next week, we're gonna be going over the trunk setup and what tank I decided to buy to kind of get that whole trunk closed off and set up real nice and mounted and everything. But then we'll also have the video for the airlift 3P full review later on, and the finished product of showing you how the car looks, you know, aired up, aired out, bagged, you know, the whole, pretty much all the little features it has and everything. So like I said, if you guys like the video, don't forget the thumbs up, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Hold on to me.